Welcome to Full Metal RPG. I'm your host, Richie Buzzkill. Today I'm here with Ashley. What up, Ashley?
Hi.
And Jess.
The host too, isn't she?
Well,
Yeah.
yes, host. I'm...
Hi.
Hello,
Hi, I'm
everyone.
Richie Buzzkill.
Hi.
I am co-host with Ashley, who's also co-host, and we have a special co-host, Jess, today.
I'm a guest. I am actually a guest. I'm not a host.
Anyways, so we're... Now that confusion that will continue on as a thread forever, because we're not going to sit down and talk about roles. That would be silly. So we're going to talk about, this is part one of our two-part deep dive into Von Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, because we thought it was spooky season, as people say now. Spooky season. Yeah. All right, we're gonna basically for this episode, we're gonna create a domain using the rules and guide of Von Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. I don't know why I suddenly dipped into an accent there, but
you're like me with DMing Ravenloft. The accents just
they happen.
Nope, they happen. Whatever comes out of my mouth.
Yeah, well, I usually about 2 seconds after beginning an accent realize I have made a terrible mistake. Yep. And then I will try to stop doing said accent. Now, breath control, voice control, that's a different subject altogether. Maybe a different episode altogether.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. Okay.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
Continue.
So, Jess, you're running Strahd right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the first 5e Ravenloft. And, Correct. And have you, Ashley, have you played any of the any Ravenloft yet?
I was an NPC for one, one session. It was an NPC for one session of her Strahd campaign, and so I played one of the wives. Yeah, a bride, one of Strahd's brides, and they did not interact with me at all. And so I just kind of sat in the corner, and at one point I kind of, a little bit, but I just got to sit in on one of her sessions, which was still fun. It was still good. I liked it.
but they didn't ask any questions because they're player characters. Okay. Yep. All right.
Yep. Here's this thing our DM has set up for us. Let's go over here.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
It was fun. So yeah, no, I haven't really explored Ravenloft or anything like that at all until I read this book. So I am looking at this with a complete fresh set of eyes when it comes to Ravenloft. I don't know anything about it other than what I've just read. So.
Okay. Well, you have read, I'm assuming, about the fact that these are little pocket domains that contain a Dark Lord that is being kind of trapped and imprisoned in this mist. I really actually, stepping back a second from getting into the domains, but I really enjoyed the idea of, and I'm sure this was probably set out long ago in the far, far away, but the idea that there's powers out there that just take these Dark Lords and just plop them into their own little dimension just to torture them. I just sort of enjoyed that a great deal.
That was something that I remember when, I think it was when this came out, Jess, you were talking about that. You were just I want to know more about the dark powers. What are they and why do they do what they do and all of that? And I noticed, because I remember that conversation that we had. And so when I was reading through this, I was trying to see if I could remember, if I could see anything about it. And I didn't really see anything explaining the dark powers.
There's a little bit in the first chapter, and we'll talk about that more in the next episode. Right. But I actually, despite not getting the answers I wanted, I kind of got the answers I wanted, which... works out. So
yeah. Yeah, I could see a whole campaign that would be Ravenloft that would be really interesting. It's sort of just it's sort of like the Ghostbusters one when they shut off the containment. So you go through all the zones and somebody shuts off Ravenloft and then all the Dark Lords invade whatever world you guys came from. Anyways.
Oh God.
They all have different rules, so I don't even know if that would work.
Well, the Dark Lords being so powerful that they don't have stats. So
yeah.
That would be
anyway.
Bonkers.
Yes. Yeah. So that's my headcanon currently. Anyways.
Universe would collapse.
Yes. So one of these universes we're going to create today. So it kind of starts out with, it kind of goes into like, oh, you should take traits from your characters and then use them. Go ahead.
So the way the book kind of presents itself is that you are creating a domain for a campaign, whether it's for a part of a campaign you're already running with characters you already have, or if you're creating a new campaign specifically to run this domain with your players. So the book sets it out in a way that you and your players are kind of designing the game together. You take inspiration from the players in order to create something truly horrific that they can play with.
Right. And it suggests like asking the players and maybe not telling them why you're asking them, because it doesn't necessarily mention this, but it says, hey, what is your favorite like trait, ideal, or bond or flaw, which is something a very small part of 5th edition that almost everyone ignores, which is the kind of like personality development section that's kind of in the backgrounds. All the backgrounds have a different personality development. So I created some if we need some inspiration here. And we can like try to use at least do it for one of them as kind of a small seed to start off creating a Dark Lord. Or we can talk about genre, because that's the other part that I wish they had talked about first, is picking what genre genres of horror you're going to use to create your
You could do it both ways. You could start from the campaign setting first, which would be picking a genre or blend of genres, because a lot of the examples they have blend several different genres together. Or you could start from the players and build something tailored to them. So either approach would work.
That was one of the approaches when they were talking about, because this whole book is about like creating domains. It's very much, we'll get into this next episode, but it's very much like a DM's guide more so than a player guide.
100%.
Yeah, but one of the things they say is when you're creating this domain, you can use it for the characters and the players and all of that. But you can also jump ahead to genre and just pick that and then build your characters for that genre and then move from there. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of different ways to do it. And to me, that makes the most sense. Like, what kind of world do I want to live in? And then put the characters in that world and go from there.
Yeah, well, this depends on what kind of DM you are.
Well, but also like in Ravenloft, it's almost one of the tropes of Ravenloft is taking characters from another world and dropping them into Ravenloft. So they are this stark relief where if you make the characters for the ghost story or whatever, they might, it doesn't necessarily use that trope, which is fine. You know, it's just one of those like, it sort of goes back to the evil GM trope of like, oh yes, I will now drop you into this terrible world where there's a vampire ruling it. Like
yeah. You can also, even if you are an outsider though, there are still those threads of like these ideals, bonds, and flaws. They're very generalized. And they could be, even if you are an outsider, like your ideal is somebody is very important to me and I want to be like them. That's something that a lot of people can relate to. So it's even if you're an outsider, you can still reflect a player's or a character's hopes and fears and tailor the horror to them, which I'm doing a lot with Strahd, actually, which is it's already pre-made.
Right.
My players made their characters with very little knowledge of what they were jumping into, and then they were dropped in. But even so, I know I'm still building in threads of to play on their hopes and fears and goals, and I'm molding and picking different parts of the Strahd campaign to make sure that they have a lot of personal horror that they have to deal with, despite being in a different world.
Right. And I think the part of what they were kind of getting at in this book is like the adventures are there as another form of torture to the Dark Lord. Like they're there and they're chosen specifically as a reflection, as a bright reflection of the Dark Lord in order to give it that extra edge, to have something happen to because otherwise if it was like, oh yeah, I don't care about you. I mean, it just makes a better story too, that they're all kind of like tied together.
Which is why, like, yes, there's the trope of just drop them in, but I think it makes for a more satisfying and well-rounded story if you do kind of incorporate them a little bit. Like, if it is a reflection or like an opposite reflection or something like that of the Dark Lord and the actual domain itself, I just feel like if it's more put together, it's more cohesive, in my opinion.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, do we want to start with these generic things that I made, or do we want to start with the genre of horror and work our way the other way? I'm fine with either.
So, Jess and I were kind of talking about it yesterday and this morning a little, but when we were reading through it, I was really drawn to like the circus or the carnival domain. I just thought that was really cool. So we'll get to that later.
Examples.
Yeah, when we're looking at the examples. But
yes,
there was a character.
I was just sort of sorry, I'm from the Midwest, so I was having a Juggalo flashback. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry that I prompted or instigated that at all.
Yeah.
So so I had a character for one of Jess's campaigns that she ran for us a couple years ago, and it was kind of a horror themed. It was horror themed, and
yeah, actually. Real brief interlude. When we were discussing about it this morning, I realized as I was going back through my notes trying to find inspiration, I had on the character pages for all my player characters, I had at the bottom a list of all their fears, their deepest, darkest fears, and I was building plot lines to play on those fears. So I guess I was running a domain.
Sounds like it.
Without even knowing it. I think that this is something people have been doing possibly for a while, and now it's just in a book, and it teaches you how to do it for those who maybe need a little bit more inspiration or a push to do it, which I think a lot of the 5e stuff that's coming out now, not a lot of it's groundbreaking. It's stuff that I think a lot of people have been doing for a while, but it's giving...
Well, I also think that like they're using some of those, like, because like if you had published this game in any other edition, I think you would have had like a stat creation for the Dark Lord. You would have been making stats for the Dark Lord, and that is, as far as I can tell, that's not in here.
It's not in there.
It's not. And the reason, that's another thing about this book that we will talk about next episode that I really like, is that it encourages role playing so much.
Right.
Like, because there's not stat blocks for the Dark Lords.
Oh, okay. So
back to Winifred.
Back to Winifred. So, and one of the characters that I had built was Winifred was who I played. Winifred Woodwind. She was a very bitchy bard. And so
she was sassy.
She was sassy. Yes.
She was a bitch.
Yes. So, she was a Southern belle who was famous. So I was thinking it would be fun to, she was totally famous. I was thinking it would be fun to use her as one of the characters to go into the domain because she was fun. And she's already fleshed out. So,
okay. So, what is one of her traits that is like your favorite trait?
She was narcissistic as fuck because she thought she was famous. She was a legend in her own mind. She was a circus performer that...
You probably heard of me.
Yeah. Everyone I met, I'd be like, oh, I'm sure you've heard of me. Like, I just assumed they knew who I was. So her biggest flaw, I would say, is that she was an absolute narcissist.
So as co-game masters here, do we go with the Dark Lord is more narcissistic, like most narcissistic, or do we go with they are the hidden power? Like, are they, because that's one of the suggestions is to like either take that and turn it up to like 12,000.
Yeah, exaggerate or twist it into the opposite.
Or do the opposite. So, what do you think?
I like exaggerate just because she thinks she's the biggest, best thing. So I would think that a Dark Lord who is bigger and better and who does not know who she is would be great.
I'm sorry, who are you?
Right. No, I haven't. And keep calling her like, I'm sorry, your name was what? Winona? Like, Winifred was her name. So yeah.
So one of our traits of our Dark Lord is they're ultra narcissistic.
Yeah.
Okay. So ultra narcissistic. So clearly they're going to be naming everything after themselves. We'll get to that when we talk about maybe some locations or something like that. Okay, and then we need, kind of like one more at least, right? So, what was one of the other ones you had?
Ideals, bonds, or flaws.
It was I think the narcissism was a flaw.
Who does she care about? Yeah, who or what does she care about? Is she connected to anything?
She had like a mentor when she was at the circus that kind of took her in and helped her, and they have since passed away, but they gifted her with a necklace, and so that necklace she was very attached to. So
this person.
What? Who is this person?
Like her mentor?
Yes.
Her name was Isolde. She was a fortune teller who was a little bit insane, touched by wild magic. You didn't know that as a player.
Okay. I was going to say, I'm like...
Interesting. Well, I mean, there is, the fortune teller vibe is kind of like runs through Ravenloft. They have the Troika deck, and then they have the Ouija board in the back. Board. Did you see that in the back of the book that they have the thing? Yeah.
Seance board or whatever it was.
So this was someone that you loved, but I'm assuming was all not necessarily that person, but someone that's a reflection of that person was very important to the Dark Lord. In their story that would kind of also show up still. So maybe
a mentor, family figure, mother figure.
I mean, clearly could be the mother, of the Dark Lord, right? It was also a fortune teller. And of course, maybe we're going a little Norman Bates where like mother is like, no, the
mother is not anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Mother isn't here right now.
Yeah. Mother isn't here right now. Mother, they're always talking about mother, and the fortune, you can find all this fortune telling stuff in and around or,
oh, that's interesting. A Dark Lord with a fractured personality.
Yes.
Ooh, yeah. That would be fun.
Or maybe they have indeed two sides of their personality, one of which is mother and the other which is
right. Yeah.
I like that. I think that's very interesting because we have the Vistani right in Strahd.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of one of the tropes in there, but I'd soon steer away from that trope because of certain issues, but
which they fixed in a later edition, but yeah.
Right. Fortunately fixed, but I do like that, and we're talking about, are we kind of getting into like a dark fantasy or like a folk fantasy, a folk horror kind of genre here?
I'm feeling more folk horror.
Folk horror. Okay.
Could be a combo, dark fantasy and folk horror.
Was then I sort of like, well, Gothic means that we can have big giant Gothic buildings with their face on it.
Do all of them. Do all of them.
All of it. Fuck it. Just
why not all of it?
Yeah.
Why not all of it? That's true. Yes. That's true. Now I'm just seeing like this giant Gothic building that has just giant faces coming off the faces of the mother and the face of the Lord, but the Lord is always bigger, but they kind of like watch you as you walk past.
Yeah.
But folk horror would be more like they're, inhabiting kind of a mansion in the woods or a big kind of log building in the woods kind of thing. But okay. So I think it's like what kind of things happened in their past life to make them a Dark Lord, right? Development
questions.
So because from what it kind of implied was that like they did really terrible, irredeemable, like they had a chance to be redeemed and they totally said, no, I'm not redeemed. I'm going further into this thing. So
like that's the main thing for a Dark Lord is just that they're irredeemable. Like they're absolutely irredeemable. It's the number one thing that stood out to me when we were talking about the Dark Lords when I was reading it, is that first, that's like the 100% has to be irredeemable.
Yeah, like there's always an option, a moment where you can walk back, but for a Dark Lord, they've gone past it. They can never be redeemed. They can never.
They went right through that sign and just kept.
Yep.
You know. So were they like? So were they a leader in their world that kind of like rose up a whole thing and tried to genocide some people, or were they like were they just kind of like going more folk horror where they were just kind of were a serial killer that killed in their kind of area hundreds
what did she want?
Mother?
Who is this? Yes, this mother person or the person who wants to be famous or believes she is famous. Well, fame.
Right. I was gonna say she wanted to be a household name. Wanted everyone to know.
And maybe they were trying to send a message with their killing. They were a serial killer that kind of like tried to become unnamed. And
or like trying to make their mother figure proud or something, like the Dark Lord was doing something to try and make their mother figure proud or something like that. Yeah.
So we know what she wants. Who did she harm? What kind of people or beings or communities did she harm and how?
Well, I feel like it starts with, those people would probably populate the domain, right? Because that's like
the torture for the Dark Lord.
Right. So what if, typically think humans, because that's my default is just to go to humans, right? But they were, maybe looking, like wood elves or something like that. I keep thinking of like folk horror as there's these this very dark woods that's very old. You have this very, that they were trying to like claim this land for mother and becoming famous for doing so. But, you don't know that I'm here to, but I don't know. That's
or like the competition, like anyone who they saw as competition or something like that, just took them out.
Yeah. But like, it's got to be pretty big, right? I guess it doesn't, I guess it doesn't have to be like.
It could be repetitive.
Yes.
Like in terms of Strahd, it was the one act that he did. And for a lot of them, it is one act, but it could be just something they've done over time, just constantly. And then there was just a final straw.
Or what if they killed their mother figure? Like, and that could be the irredeemable thing that they can't come back from.
Right. And then their torture is to be haunted by their mother at all times.
Yeah.
Like, they were bad, they were bad. They were, doing terrible things, but they also eventually I think that's a good story that can unfold over, sessions. So
did mom try to stop her, or did mom not believe in her enough?
I don't think the mom believed in her enough. I think that's like classic, like the classic turn is like,
Yeah.
You never saw that she was getting too big for her britches and starting to
knock her down a peg.
Twist into something that was not good anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. I like that.
Maybe she tried to use magic to further her goals for fame and fortune and recognition and success. We talked about the theme of wild magic from the character that inspired this. So maybe something to do with the wild magic.
Like it was a wild magic thing gone wrong or something. Like it tends to be.
But the thing with that is they mention in the domains that evil acts have to be where are my notes on this? They have to be intentional.
Okay. Yep.
Unnecessary. So it can't be an accident. It has to be intentional, unnecessary, successful. So they succeed in doing their horrible thing and cause significant harm. So that's the moment. The 4 criteria for the beyond redemption moment is it has to be on purpose and awful.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I think maybe they had like succeeded, right, at whatever the thing the mother and the Dark Lord was trying to do. Right, they succeeded.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
they succeeded, and then the mother made her classic comment of, "Well, you really don't think they love you, do you?" And then that's when, that's when she gets killed, and then that's when the mists swallow them up. And
so I'm imagining this dark circus monstrosity somewhere in the deep dark woods, and she has somehow managed to bring audience members, bring people to fawn over her, bring people to witness her through some sort of coercion or magic. I don't know. And it seems to be sort of working, but all these people, they were dying. they were no longer in control of their lives. She stole these people. And then her ultimate act, now I'm thinking kind of like a WandaVision thing. So she has this pocket dimension where all these people are forced to be puppets in her story. And then the mother figure comes in and tries to get her out of it, stop her, sees what she's doing, tries to convince her to stop, and says that, they don't actually love you. You don't have the things that you think, because you never can. You're not good enough. And that's the moment. So the irredeemable act would be whatever snapped in her that caused her to harm her mother. I think that's where the awfulness comes from.
Yeah.
All right.
I can see that.
So she like takes all of, she's like slowly, it's like fish fans like following her across the land.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just they've become like inured with whatever this wild like she's this born of a, are we going to say that her mother was the fortune teller, born of the fortune teller, a font of wild magic that kind of like became this kind of corrupted wild magic over time that kind of she was able to use that to like gain followers across the land. And then they were like, they just became these ragged wretches as they were, not feeding themselves. And it became like very clear that, then her mother shows up and says, they don't really love you. And
never have real love.
And you never had real love. And that's when like, just like this, like terrible slaughter, and her mother gets killed as well. Like just and then that's when like the mists rise up and swallow this. So
yeah.
Okay. I dig it. We didn't get any okay. All right. Okay, so we've got kind of the unbelievably unbelievably narcissistic. They have a maybe the ideal is like even makes it even more narcissistic. The Dark Lord's ideal is like love for me is the ultimate, expression of reality or something like that. Like, and then like the bond is like mother loved me or something like that, but or kind of like playing with that. Well, we'll come back to the bond thing. I don't know if it's
I think we can probably we probably don't need it for what we're doing here.
Right.
So is the bond supposed to be like a bond that they have with another person or thing?
Person, place, or thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Usually something that is important to you that drives a part of your personality.
Okay, gotcha.
Right. That would allow, player characters to, because a lot of this, the ideals, the flaws, and the bonds are so that you can start scattering clues about the land to figure out the mystery of the domain, right? That's really I think that's the point of having those. And then it's for us to build something further with, really. So, we've got the evil act. We got those who were harmed.
Irredeemable.
Definitely irredeemable. I'm thinking like when Mother's in charge, that you see Mother, like that they're like a twisted version when
the monstrous transformation.
Yeah, the monstrous transformation of the Dark Lord is you see Mother, and Mother is this like
hag.
It's a hag, but it's also like giant because you think of your mother as the first time you see them, they're very, very large, right? So like maybe as a kid, your first memory, like maybe the first memory of this Dark Lord that they remember is like the mother scolding them, and they're like 12 foot tall in comparison to this very short person, right? So they have this like, and of course then that transformation I think really lends itself to the idea of that's the protector side, right? So you have this like
overprotective
side that you have this, and since we're talking about D&D, you have this like kind of like interesting dynamic that could like really scare player characters like, oh shit, that's a giant hag, oh no. With unknown properties, like just
hags are creepy.
Oh yeah. Well, I like that a lot. So we have this Dark Lord. Do we want to like kind of name them or make a gender decision or
I think it helps, especially with getting into some of these questions further down. So who is she? What would you like the honor of naming your monstrous baby, Ashley?
Monstrous baby. So what if we went with Winifred and Isolde? Like we had already named them. I know that Winifred was the kind of character we were basing this off or whatever, but what if Winifred Woodwind was the Dark Lord and it could be the co-Dark Lord like they had in what was it? There was one of them that had
a few of them had
multiple
Dark Lords. Yeah, they shared
and some of them were like either sharing it or there wasn't officially one and they were vying for power. So it could be one of those situations where it's both of them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Winifred, the Dark Lord,
Winnie the Dark Lord.
Winifred.
Old Winnie.
I feel very strong. I feel very strongly that they're so narcissistic that you cannot shorten their name. If that was one of her things. Very, very, very mad if you shorten their name. So
she would be like, "My name's Winifred. My friends call me Winnie. You can call me Winifred." So that was like whenever she met anyone, she would say that. So.
Right.
Nobody called her Winnie except people who wanted to annoy her.
So okay, so
Dark Lord Winifred.
Dark Lord Winifred.
I like it.
And so now we're kind of we've got our Dark Lord. We've kind of got some ideas here. Now we're going to start creating a domain for Winifred, right? So I think it's like starts out with kind of like the Dark Lord shadows on the land, right? So it says kind of like you can have a domain that's anywhere from the size of a house to a size of a continent, right? It gives you all sorts of. I feel like it's kind of like I think it's like a relatively small domain.
I think so too, like the size of
circus.
Like a circus or the woods surrounding the circus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you need a couple locations. So like so like
there's the nearby town maybe.
Yeah, a town, right? Because you need a town for traveling performers.
Maybe there's a few towns. Maybe this is the size of Barovia.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not against that. It's not Barovia is not terribly a large place. I mean,
you can get across it in like 3 days.
Right. So I think that's a good size. So we have like 2 or 3 towns and the traveling performers that move from town to town to town. And I think part of the torture of the Dark Lord is everyone in town always goes to the performances, but nobody follows. Right. So that like that echo of they don't get a following, right? That there's like something preventing that from happening.
Or they'll go to the show and then they're on their like, fantasy wood phone or whatever, and they're bored the whole time. Like they're not actually paying attention to the performance. They're just, on their.
Well, no, I think they're wrapped performances, but their smiles are just kind of
fake.
Fake? Ooh, that's creepy.
Perfect. Like that's what we want.
Right. Yeah.
Like flocks from Enterprise smiles, just the big unnatural.
They must, they're sort of, when they are at the show, that it's not real. Like you can tell, like innately that this audience, it has to pay attention or there will be consequences.
And that's when her flaw comes in. She is so narcissistic that she does not believe they're not fully engrossed in her performance.
Right. Exactly.
Look at him.
Exactly.
Yep. I like
smiles.
That. I know. Clearly they're enjoying themselves.
Right. So that kind of sets up a dynamic for characters to kind of come and get involved. And I think it's sort of not readily apparent that Winifred is the leader of the land. Like a lot of these domains you can like immediately, but I think you would as you go through the forest, there's like carvings of her face in the trees. Like whether or not how they got there is an entirely different problem, but like
or why.
And then like
the trees could have like 2. It could be her and the mother figure. Like each tree has
each
2
one of them
there.
facing each other, like they're paired up, right? So that's kind of, I think that's a good torment. And then like obviously the ultimate torment is mother is always overshadowing her in some way, right? So there's the rumor, like if you talk long enough, you find out about the giant hag that's in the woods, right? But it's really her. But like, that's like, you kind of start to figure out that there's this, these random attacks by this giant hag.
Sort of like the carvings of Winnie would be when the tree was younger, and then as it grows bigger, like the face just gets distorted as it's going up. And that's I like that. So anyway, sorry, I was excited about that.
Yeah, no, that's good. I like it. What other torments? Do we have a rival performance? Rival performers?
Maybe that's a good adventure hook.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Is to or like if there's a performer that is not as good, she's convinced is not as good, but for some reason people follow her around.
Yeah, because it needs something to like have a little bit more going on,
more movement,
or like a mother-daughter performing duo. Like the mother and daughter perform together and they get a following.
They're just so happy.
I know. That would be fun.
I like that. Yeah. So now we're developing a kind of culture where performing is a thing that people do. Like it's a very common. That's something that everybody aspires to, or a lot of people aspire to, and a lot of people, that's one of their pastimes, is they go to these performances. What kind of is she a singer?
Right.
Or what is she doing?
I sort of like singing because that's sort of, but
it can be super creepy.
Because you could just, I mean, I like Bjork, but you could just sort of like get that Bjork vibe. I think you could just,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I like her, but she's also, because she's kind of creepy. So like, kind of like that.
Yeah, she cultivates the creepy.
Yeah. But it doesn't necessarily have to be singing. It could be, I don't know. I think. So,
I like this. Distilled Quasar on Twitch says it's the same 3 or 4 towns with the same people, but they never seem to remember that they have seen this before.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That they're never they've never seen this show before. We're very excited. They've never seen the show, and if the players have been around long enough, they come back to the same place. They're like, "Oh, have you seen this show? This show is amazing." It's like, we went with you last time. Like, you know, if they
yeah,
it's their smoked paprika.
Oh jeez. We should try that sometime.
Yeah. Also, hi Kevin. That's Distilled Quasar. It's my friend Kevin.
So. Hey nice. Kevin. Yeah, because the endless torment, the ideas that they put in here are a never-ending loop.
Yes.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah.
So I think one of the loops is they always kill the competition. Like there's always a confrontation. There's always a with that. That's one of the loops. And then I think once that's kind of like maybe the end of the loop, or that the followers now follow her until there's this like kind of
somebody siphons them away again.
Yeah. That
or if
go ahead.
Once they kill them, they become more famous after they've been killed. You know what I mean? Like people that get famous, they gain the fame after they're dead. So by killing them and trying to
martyrs
take them out, and they end up becoming even more famous and bigger in death.
Right. And then there's there's got to be something where I think the last thing is obviously the last thing in their world where they like there's some sort of confrontation with the mother that ends with the resetting of the plot essentially.
Yeah.
Either that or it's always ever present and never, because another thing they mention is it's always on the cusp of something awful, terrible happening, so they have to be constantly vigilant to prevent it from happening.
Right. It's that would be the tipping point for them is they actually have the confrontation with mother. Like there's a way that's lying around for the adventurers to find to separate the mother from the daughter. So they can basically, the way they bring this to a crescendo is they basically have to separate them in some sort of folk horror ritual.
Summoning ritual or something.
I'm thinking lots of flowers, burning effigies, the classic like kind of like Midsummer, where you're having this like, maybe there's some other rituals for, those that are before, fertility rituals before that or something like that, before the burning of the effigies. And that's like, that's the way to separate them. And then that's when you have the big confrontation.
It has to do something with the trees. Is that what you said, Jess? Because I was like, if
lots of twigs, yes.
Oh, twigs. Because I'm like, if the tree that we carved, we didn't. They carved themselves. But the like trees that had Winifred, Darklord Winifred's face carved in them, that as they grew, they stretched and distorted. It's got to be something with those trees that would do this.
You take the largest tree with the biggest mother face on it, and that's the site of the ritual. And then you have to bring so many daughter faces. You have to go cut down, and that's probably a whole like confrontation with something in the woods to try and cut down all these trees to build this I
think we have a pretty good storyline. I think the only thing left are maybe some possible monsters and encounters and things, and then supporting cast for other people in this world that move the story along or the players can interact with.
I think I'm thinking like maybe I know it's a little cliche, but we're, do some kind of werewolves in the woods, or some kind of woodland creatures, right? That are like, maybe like some sort of like elk men or something like that. Something where it's like they're kind of creepy and they're very aggressive and they're the protectors of the trees, right? That you have.
Yeah. Like fae folk or something that are like, I don't know, not druids, but something like that, where they are trying to.
Forest Strahd.
As long as they're not boneless, because that's one of the things that
I was gonna say. The boneless really squished you out, so we should probably put one in there somewhere.
Super squished me out. I hated them so much. In the book,
they have that small little expanded bestiary, and she read the boneless and went, "Nope, no."
Body horror, yeah. What if we have like the place where the mother raised the daughter as a site in the woods somewhere, right? So you can sort of go to their original home, right? It's abandoned, but there is some kind of something living there.
Yeah.
That's kind of like maybe ghosts or something like that. And then
like ghosts.
Maybe you have, that's one of the places where you can learn about this ritual, right? Is maybe there's like a cross stitch on the wall that's like kind of describes the ritual, maybe
grimoire.
A grimoire,
like a remnant where you have to watch some of the scenes from their greatest hits play out. Like I don't even want to say fights, but like where she was so proud of something and the mom was just like meh, and like shit on it.
Right. I was thinking something that like you would find in a not necessarily a grimoire, but something that's like folky, that's like you would find like maybe a dress that's got the story kind of stitched into embroidery or maybe somebody go ahead, sorry,
maybe the actual mother lives there,
another reflection of the mother lives there, or that's
the one we were talking about before was maybe a reflection of the actual mother is the one that's taken up residence in Winifred.
Yeah, maybe that's like the it's not that they're split personalities, but so much as like there's multiple pieces of that are the Dark Lord. So it's the mother and the daughter are the Dark Lords, and one is a giant hag and the other one is like a siren or something like that.
And they put a way to explain that in the book, which is again why I said even though I didn't get answers, I got the answers I needed. Is they basically said that it's a nightmare world, anything can happen, you don't really have to explain it.
Fuck your physics. Anyway,
basically, yes. Like, okay, I have permission.
Right. And I was sort of thinking like if we wanted to put a boneless in the bottom of the well or something like that, just as like a creepy. There we go.
That's why we're doing it.
That would be such a good place for a boneless to like dwell, would be at the bottom of the well.
And
because it looks like, it's empty.
Instead of, and if you watch the mother, instead of like getting water out of the well, she's like dumping scraps in the well. And like feeding the boneless as a pet, like keep and if it doesn't get fed, it gets loose. You have to feed it or it will come and roam around. And then if you say kill the mother, then the boneless will like start running through the forest and doing crazy things like
boneless things.
Being all boneless.
So we got a few towns. So do we need like because like they have like some support like organizations in Strahd that are like they're like the were creatures and do we need like somebody will the players need help from anybody to deal with this? I
think so.
Yeah.
I think there should be at least a few people who know what's what. And they made in the in this source book in Van Richten's guide, they made it canon that the Keepers of the Feather that they have fingers in all the domains or multiple domains. They're not just in Barovia.
So
yeah, maybe they have a branch here.
Maybe this branch here is like kind of a thing of folklore, like they're Wiccans, like they're like also on the other side, they're kind of like the keepers of the forest knowledge kind of thing, or they sort of they're kind of like reticent to do anything because they're like always, because clearly there's no reason, nothing's good. This is the way things are supposed to be here, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But I think they could be convinced to help with the ritual, right? That's kind of like, you need help with the ritual, or otherwise it's really hard to do.
There'll be people scattered throughout the towns who know of the old magic. If you can find these wise people, one or two, throughout the realm, and that's part of it. The key is asking the right questions and finding these people with the knowledge of where to go and how to find the answers.
All right. I like that, because that gives some more places to go and people to see. Do we need like an artifact or something laying around, or is that like some, because I don't know if anybody, we don't necessarily need a dungeon, but so much as like something that's like helps,
sort of powerful,
helps control, or could help them in the final crescendo, right?
I'm thinking something that can help cast silence.
Like a greater silence or something like that. Like silence itself wouldn't actually work against the Dark Lord, but like a greater silencing effect, because without that they'll just get
something like I don't know, I was thinking it could be something like a musical instrument, since she sings something like a
music box.
Yeah, a music box would be cool.
Music box, you turn it on and suddenly there's greater silence in the area, and the only thing you can hear is this music box.
I like that. That's fun.
And that's the song that's on the music box is the song that she sings.
Yes.
And she grew up with this.
Her.
Right. She grew up with it. You find a pale imitation of it in the farmhouse or whatever, in the little hut, forest hut.
Yeah.
And then there's like let's say like maybe like a forest maze, like one of those you get lost around every corner kind of places that in the center of this very dark and kind of at the border near the mists. Like if you make a wrong turn, you could go into the mists kind of thing. Like this music box is the center, and you can have like, encounters with different creatures in that maze. So we get that, we get a little bit of that D&D, like you can do your dungeon crawl in this like dark, ever changing, doesn't need a map, because who needs a map for a forest maze?
Right.
There were labyrinths mentioned in multiple of the examples of the domains. So labyrinths were kind of a theme that I saw throughout.
Yes. We were almost going to pitch turning labyrinth into a domain, but it's kind of already a domain. So
pretty much. Yeah,
movie Labyrinth, if you think about it in the terms, I'm just like, this is
a Dark Lord.
And now I want to run a Labyrinth game.
We should do that.
We should totally do that.
Well, there is a role-playing game for that, and it's a very beautiful book. So
cool. Okay.
Okay, so I think we kind of have a domain, right? We don't have like names for a lot of stuff yet, but like we have Winifred, right? And then
we have the bones, we have the skeleton.
We have the skeleton. I feel like that's a good preview. I really enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun, and I think I think this is a good preview for this is a good part one. for our Von Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. In 2 weeks, we're going to do Halloween stream.
Ooh,
so
Halloween stream.
Come in and we'll do our full review of this book. And I'm going to try and collect all this information and kind of give it to the patrons. So thank you, patrons, very much for your support. You can support us on patreon.com/fullmetalrpg. You can and if you go to fullmetalrpg.com, you can find our t-shirts and where we live on YouTube and all that other stuff. So I'm wearing Full Metal RPG Sucks t-shirt today because
stand up
stand up so you can see it. Yep, our awesome fan art
is beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Yes.
And on the back of it has some of our favorite 1-star reviews.
Yes, our best reviews, but not the review. But if you're going to leave us a 5-star any review, please tell us so we can feature you on a future episode. So we will
read it.
We will read actual reviews, not ranting into the blogosphere. Sorry, not sorry.
So make them funny
or interesting. Or say that
make
we're funny or interesting. We're narcissistic about this. Come on, people.
Right.
So I want to thank Jess for coming on and again and helping do this hard work of, because these D&D books are not small books.
And this one's a big one. This one's 256 pages, which we'll get into next episode. Sorry.
But it's actually pretty enjoyable to read compared to a lot of these. I've tried read a lot of these books and they're bad.
This was fun.
All right. So thanks everybody for watching. Ashley, you got anything else to say?
Oh, thank you guys. And
thank you for
see you in 2 weeks.
Yes. See you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Happy spoopy season.
Rah.